Hi there. It's good to be here on this fine morning, or at least it's morning for me. My name is Daphne, and I have been a writer officially for 5 years. I wrote in high school, a few short stories here and a novel abandoned after a few thousand words, but I never really took it seriously. And then I went to college and I started studying theater, and all of my time was devoted to reading and performing in plays. It wasn't until after I'd graduated that I thought about writing in any serious capacity. I don't consider my time getting a theater degree to be wasted. Sure, if I had gotten my degree in creative writing, I might be doing an MFA by now, I might have more industry connections in the publishing world, but frankly, I would not be the kind of writer that I am if I had not spent my time in college deeply studying plays. But that's what I'd like to talk about today. My own journey as a writer and how I believe that studying storytelling in a different medium than my own helped develop my style. Everyone comes about it in a different way. Some people may be born out of the womb believing themselves to be a writer. Some people may take a little longer to arrive to it, but I really want to stress that nothing, no time, no study, nothing is wasted, even if it may not be in the format or in the thing that you end up doing for the rest of your life. I hope hearing about my own helps you in some way, because that's what I want. The world needs more writers. If you're someone who felt stuck, if you're someone who hasn't touched it in a while, maybe abandoned it, I hope that you leave this video feeling ready to put pen to paper. On some level, I always wanted to tell stories. When I was a little girl, I made melodramas for my Polly Pockets. I would force my family to watch me perform in one-woman musicals with nonsense lyrics that I had made up. I would tell tall tales for anyone who would listen. And then when I was in high school, I decided I wanted to be a Broadway star. So I was convinced I would be on Broadway and I would be a showrunner for a sitcom. In my head, I would be at 30 Rock by day, writing a sitcom, and then at night I'd dash off to Broadway and I'd perform and be a star. I had it all figured out. But in between all that, I also started writing in secret. I'll admit I was really embarrassed to share my writing because writing is a very intimate and sometimes scary act. None of them exist anymore. They're all in a laptop on a landfill, long destroyed by the elements. It's no great loss to the literary canon. They are all self-insert wish fulfillment stories or very childish attempts at serious literature. Then I went to college and my life was taken over by theater. I think I may have read about 5 fiction novels during my time in college, and they were all for my gen ed English courses. My time was taken by reading plays at work, in my free time, reading them for shows that I was in. I read and deeply studied plays across genres and movements. And then my mom died. And then I graduated. And then the pandemic hit, all within a year of each other. I was deep in grief, and the path that I had seen for myself performing and producing plays was closed off. I fell back into old habits and started writing again. It was more wish fulfillment, but this time it was about changing my name and running away across the world in any attempt to escape the grief that just felt like it was dragging me deeper and deeper into the ocean, not letting me up for air. I threw that story out too, but in the process of writing it, I realized I had something. I found enjoyment in writing, I found it fulfilling, and I was good at it. More than that, I had stories. Actual fictional stories to tell. I had themes to explore, I had points that I wanted to make, and I had a unique perspective on all of it. I wish I could tell you the exact moment that inspiration struck for the novel that I'm currently revising right now, but I don't remember. I just remember it being a perfect storm. I had been having these thoughts swirl around in my mind for a while about the 1970s rock and roll scene, about the queer artists who made iconic music and images during that time and yet had to be in the closet for their own careers, about celebrity and the masks and personas that celebrities must wear in order to both project an image for the public to consume and to protect themselves. And I remember it was the fall of 2020. I do remember that. And I remember it was an afternoon after work. And I had just gotten home. I was exhausted. And it was like, it wasn't even me. It was like this extraterrestrial force telling me, you need to get a pen and paper right now. And so I did. I grabbed an old notebook and I just started writing. I'd entered some sort of flow state and these characters came out and these plots came out. It was like it was all being fed to my brain from somewhere else, or at least these had all been things that had been simmering beneath my consciousness, down deep in my subconscious. And now that I was sitting there writing it, it just all burst forth and flowed through. And at the end of it, it's a miracle I could even read what I wrote because I was just so messy. I was just writing it down as fast as I could get it out because I couldn't keep up with the thoughts. I woke up, essentially, and I realized I had a story. It was messy. It would take a lot of work to actually organize it into a coherent story, but I had something. I had the very beginnings of the novel that I am now getting ready to send to agents 5 years later. I didn't know the first technical thing about writing a novel, but I knew how to write a story, even though I didn't realize how I knew that at the time. Storytelling is storytelling no matter the medium. The finer technical points may differ, but the shape is always the same. So this is where I want to get into how studying plays specifically helped shape my own style of writing. Your journey to finding your own style is going to be different from mine, different from everyone else's in the world. But I want to give this advice because I think that you can study all the craft books in the world, you can read all the novels in the world, and those will make you better writers. But I believe that in order to be the best writer you can be, you need to be reading things outside of whatever medium you write. You need to be reading across every medium possible because that is how you will develop your own sense of style when it comes to writing, and that is how you will discover how you tell a story the best. I know this is not going to be everyone, but studying plays as an actor also really had a hand in how I wrote, specifically when it comes to character motivations, secrets, things like that. Because when I was an actor, when I was in college, we studied something called actions and tactics. We're not about method acting. When I was in college, they actually actively discouraged method acting. So they said that acting is a character performing truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And to do that, every line of dialogue, it was an exercise that we constantly had to do. We had to attach an action verb, not a being verb, an action verb to something, to our line of dialogue. So to seduce, to threaten, to cajole, to comfort. We never attached an emotional state to a line of dialogue. We always attached an action. We were saying something to do it unto another person. We wanted something from our scene partner, and the way that we said our lines was how we were going to get it. And so this exercise, even if you don't ever plan on getting on a stage, don't ever plan on getting in front of a camera, do this exercise. You don't even have to do it to plays. Do it to your own story. Can you attach an action verb to every single line of dialogue that your characters say? And that is the secret to making dialogue come to life, is making sure your characters, whatever they're saying it to do something to the other person. So what do they want from that other person? What do they want from the circumstance that they're in? How are they going to get it? Can you attach an action verb to the line of dialogue. They're not saying something just because they're sad. They're not saying something just because they're excited. That doesn't do anything. That makes dialogue fall flat. They're saying something to do something. But through doing something, that is where the revelations happen. That is where the plot moves forward because they're acting. They're actively doing something with their words. That is where they reveal something because what they want is hidden underneath that, and we are seeing that internal motivation. Even if it's not a point of view character, even if it's a character outside of your protagonist, we're still able to deduce, and that's the fun part of reading, we're still able to deduce what is going on inside of them, inside of their hearts, inside of their heads. And so that is where dialogue comes to life, and that is where plays specifically, and for me personally, having studied it from an acting perspective, really helped with the writing dialogue and writing stories because I already had, and that's where I said earlier, I already knew how to write a story, I just didn't know how I knew. It's because I had studied it from an acting perspective. It's because I had spent so long deeply studying character motivations and trying to figure out why a character wanted what they wanted and how they were going to get it. And that is what stories are. And that is what set me up to have my specific style of writing. I'm building a story. I approach it from that perspective of every single character has something they want. Every single character has a motivation. Figure out what it is, and the story will follow because they are going to have their own reactions and their own ways that they approach these challenges. And I will link down below. There's a book. It's called like The Actor's Thesaurus. I can't say that word. It's called The Actor's Thesaurus. And it is just hundreds of action verbs. And then each action verb you may look up to, actually, I'll go get it. Actions, The Actor's Thesaurus. This has been invaluable to me as a writer. When I have a scene and I'm really struggling to move a scene forward and to figure out what's going on with my characters, I break out this book and I start playing around with actions. Well, how does it change if the character is trying to leave the other character, is trying to lessen, is trying to ruffle, is trying to salvage a relationship, is trying to starve. So I may know that I want my character to shock someone with this line. But what's the coloring of shock? Do I want them to agitate? Or do I want them to amaze? Or maybe appall? Or maybe daze? Or disgust? Or horrify? Or invigorate? Or jolt? Or thrill? Or unsettle? There's many different colors to shock someone. When I'm stuck, this is what I pull out to sum up what I'm trying to say. As a writer, it is your job to read, obviously. We all know that. If you're here and you're a writer, you know that already. But the typical advice is to read in your genre. I don't think that's good enough. You need to be reading plays, movie scripts, television scripts, poetry, memoirs, nonfiction, newspapers. You need to be reading anything you can get your hands on because that is how you develop your style. Kurt Vonnegut didn't plan on being a fiction writer. He wanted to be a journalist. And if you read, he's one of my favorite authors, if you read his novels, you can tell he wanted to be a journalist. That is not fiction at all, and yet that is what helped him develop his voice as an author, and he is one of the most famous sci-fi authors to come out of the 20th century. You will discover your sense of style only if you break the boundaries of what you know. Only if you put yourself into situations that you aren't familiar with. And in this case, that is reading in different mediums and genres that you are unfamiliar with. For me, like I said, I stumbled upon it through studying theater. I hadn't planned on being a writer. When I went into college, I planned on being a performer and a producer. That is how I developed my style, on accident. And I feel like a lot of people will discover their own styles on accident, but you can't stumble upon your style unless you read far and wide. If you're just reading in your genre, if you're just reading authors who are writing in a similar genre to yours, you're just going to end up copying. And I know that sounds harsh, and I don't want to make you scared, and I don't want to make you feel bad, But if all you are reading is inside of your own genre, your voice and your style is just going to sound like a copy of the homogenous mass of that genre. And obviously genres have similar genre conventions, but that is not you as an author. You as an author are a person in this world with your own life experiences, with your own worldview, with your own point of view, with your own things to say. If you find yourself in a situation where you really only studied within a narrow scope, I really encourage you to broaden that. I really hope that you take this opportunity to read plays, and I suppose if you want a place to start, Angels in America is good. Pitchfork Disney is one of my favorites. I will warn you, it is very grotesque. It is very surreal and it is very grotesque. But I'm a freak, and that's what I like. I think you should study comedies. Neil Simon is an excellent playwright for comedy. Comedy is a great place to learn beats and rhythm and flow. At the end of the day, you can make the most perfect story arc. You can do the most perfect hero's journey. You can have the most beautiful prose, but your style is what will make people remember you. And your style is how you will get your perspective across. Every single successful writer says the same thing. If you want to be a writer, you need to read. There's no getting around it. And I would go one step further and say, if you want to be a writer, you need to read outside of what you write. That is my advice to you. I hope it helps. If you feel solid in your own writing style, if you've already gone through this and arrived at your own journey's end, I would love to hear what did it for you? What brought you to your voice and to how you see the world and how you put it onto paper? Again, my name is Daphne, and if you like books, if you like art and hedonism and music, please give me a subscribe. I'd love to have a community of readers and writers and bohemians and artists, and we can be our own little artist enclave. Ooh, that sounds amazing, an artist enclave. Let's do that. So please subscribe if those are the kinds of things that you like. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that some pieces of my journey help you on your own, and I'll see you in the next video.